Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Child Care Director's Chair, where Erica Sacoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Child Care Director's Chair.
Hey guys, it's Erica here with the Child Care Director's Chair podcast. And we have, oh my goodness, I want to say like 150 episodes in our library. And I realized I really have never really told the story of how I opened up with my sister 6 child care centers and a dance studio in less than 10 years. So you may be wanting to open up your own child care center. And if you're like me, I was a director of somebody's program for a very long time. And it was a wonderful opportunity. I learned so much there. I did not know anything about childcare when I had first started. I found myself there because I had a kid, and that's how most of you end up in the field, unless you grew up and was one of those kids who was like, I want to be a teacher, and you just knew from day one. And some people that's very true. And a lot of us, it's maybe we had children of our own, and working in a childcare facility was a great way to spend time with our children, or at least be in the same building as our children while getting paid. Also great hours. We don't work nights. We don't work weekends like you do in retail. Snow days off you get with your kids. So there was a lot of benefits to it. And many childcare centers offered free or reduced childcare for their staff. So there's a lot of reasons why folks end up in the childcare setting. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I feel like, why not? We talk about a lot of things on this show, and I wanted to be fully transparent. So ironically, the podcast studio is right across the street from our very first location, which we no longer are in, by the way. But we started our first location, in 2008. And as I said, we had been working for someone else for quite a period of time. I had left for about a year, and I was doing consulting, which I love doing consulting. I was doing some consulting and working with my friend Mary Ann on some therapeutic childcare programming that she was putting into place in our centers. And my sister said, why don't we just open our own center? And I said, you know what? Why don't we? And so we did. And so we opened up our first center. It was a school-age only center. And we licensed for about 50 children. It wasn't super big, but it wasn't super small either. And we opened up literally at the top of my street. And we were full pretty quick. I'd say within 6 or 7 weeks from the time that we opened, we were at full capacity. And that was a blessing. But again, it was I don't want to say easy, but it was my neighborhood. I knew a lot of the families. I knew a lot of the kids. So, it was an easy transition. And I had been running, as I said, another center for quite a period of time in the same area. So I was already known. So it wasn't like I started from scratch, although I did start from scratch. The building that we went into was not previously a child care center. So my sister and I had to build that from the ground up. And we did a lot of the work ourselves because we didn't have a whole lot of money. So I can remember being there late nights and painting walls and doing construction things. My sister more than me, to be honest. She is very good at interior design. But I did a lot with the licensing, the application, a lot with the business plan, a lot with getting the funding. But the building out of the facility, honestly, I have to say, a good deal of that was my sister. So we opened up that location. And then, I'm going to say probably about 2 months after, not long, maybe 2.5 months after that, my old boss had come and asked if we wanted to purchase her location. She was ready to retire and move on to do other things, and her children had gotten older. And we were like, we don't have the money for that. We literally just opened. So we talked to our banker, and luckily for us, our old boss had a great business and had great books, and her books were in good shape, and the center was profitable and had been open for many years. So it was actually quite easy to get a loan to purchase that building. So we purchased her center. It was the property and the business and all of the furniture and all of the vans. And that also was only an after-school program. So now we had 2 after-school programs. That one was licensed for like 79. And so we had 2, and they were very, very close to each other. And so if one center was full, we would just refer folks to the other one down the street. So that worked quite well for a while. And I would say going into year 2, there was a preschool down the street that did infant, toddler, pre-K. Well, at that time, we were still only school age, and not that we didn't really have interest, it just really wasn't in our business plan to do anything other than school age. That was really what we knew, really what we loved. So we started sending all of the inquiries for infant, toddlers, and pre-K down to this other program down the street. That went pretty well for, I'd say, probably about 6 or 7 months. And at that time, she wasn't doing after school. And so one day I was at Bugaboo Creek, which is no longer open, and I was sitting there with 2 other childcare directors. One was a childcare director of a Boys and Girls Club up in Pawtucket, and the other was a friend of mine who owned several childcare programs up in the northern part of the state. And we were out to having dinner, as we often get with our colleagues after work. And I remember opening up the newspaper, and it was the beginning of the school year. And I opened up the newspaper, and it said XYZ, that's not really the name, but XYZ Daycare was now doing before and after school. And this is the center that I had been sending tons and tons and tons of referrals. So she hadn't told me that she was going to do that. So I said to my sister, I said, hey, I think we're going to open up a preschool classroom. And she said, where? And I said, we're gonna shift some kids. We're going to open up a room. So that's what we did. And ironically, about 7 months later, that competitor moved to a different building. I knew the owner of that building. He was the father of my old boss. And he said, would you guys be interested in purchasing the building? And we were like, there is absolutely no way. I mean, literally, we've opened up 2 centers in, just about 2 years. There's no way we're going to get a third. And how are we going to staff it? And where are we going to get the money? And he said, I'll finance the building for you. So we're like, really? He said, I've known you for 18 years. Yeah, I'll finance the building for you. So he did. And so he financed the building. We just had to purchase equipment and staff it. So here we are, year 3 with 3 locations. So one was we started from scratch, but it was a rental. The second was a turnkey that we bought from a previous boss. And then the third was, I guess, a turnkey, but it was an empty building. So it was a building that used to be a preschool. So the facility was, ready to go per se. We didn't have to build it out, but it didn't have teachers and children in it. It was an empty building. So here we are, year just about 3 with 3 centers. And then another opportunity happened. So here's what happens as you start to open yourself up to new things. So there was a small location in Cranston, and it was previously a child care center. And the lady was renting out the space. She wasn't selling the building, but just was renting out the space for a very low amount of an investment. And it already had furniture in it, and it was almost a no-brainer. The price was so good. So that was center number 4. So we went in there. It was really small. It was probably licensed for about 30 children. So we went in there for a little bit of time, and we filled it up with students. We had that for a short amount of time, but it was a little bit too small for the effort that we had to put in. So we sold it. So we flipped it and we sold it to somebody, and we made a profit on it. It was pretty quick that we did that. So there was that center. And then we opened up another center on the Warwick-Cranston line. It was an after-school program. And we had that for, another four or 5 years. And then our original building, the owner wanted to sell the building. But at that point, we felt we kind of had grown out of it, and we were ready to make a leap to a bigger science center. So we did that. So we closed down that center and opened up another center from scratch. It was a car lot at one point. It was quite a big, impressive building with a big parking lot and plenty of space for a playground. And so we did that from scratch, back to the bank, get some money seed money to get that started. And we did the build out and bought the furniture and enrolled and staffed. And so we had that building. And then we opened up a dance studio. And the dance studio came from an after-school program that we ran inside of our Edith Street location. And it was called ASM, which stood for After School Moves. And we had about, I don't know, maybe 14 or 15 students who really loved dance. And so after school, we had this gym that we turned into a little dance studio. And my niece knew a gentleman who was a pretty good dancer. He did hip hop and the kids loved that. And so he started teaching dance. Well, within 6 or 7 months, we had people all over asking, could they enroll their kids in their after-school dance program? To the point we had to rent a building. So we rented a building, and so we ended up with 93 after-school dance students. So we have opened 6 centers and a dance studio. It was a lot of work. And it was really cool. The process was great. And they were all different and unique. As I said, some were turnkey, some were built from scratch. Some were a combination of both, where the building was ready, but it had been empty for a period of time. So I have a lot of experience around all different ways to open up centers or enrichment programs. So that's really just was my love of doing new things and helping my community and working with families and wonderful teachers and my love. So that, that's, how I did it. I worked with the bank on several projects, and I worked with, as I said, a private person who owned a building. We did financing through him. And then the other building in Cranston, we worked with the owner of the building to purchase not the building, but the business. So I think I've done just about, I guess, maybe every scenario except for a franchise. And who knows, maybe someday I will franchise my businesses. I don't know. But so I've done several different ways of opening up a center. So I can really speak to any aspect of opening up a center from scratch or a turnkey. If I had to give my best advice for somebody who is brand new starting, there is a lot of opportunities to buy turnkeys right now. And I would say that is the easiest way. If you walk in the door and you have a center that is already operating, already has staff, already has clientele, the building's already regulated, you want to obviously work with your state worker to make sure there isn't any surprises that you need to know about that center. But I feel like that was probably the best, easiest. Building out your own center is also super fun. I think I really enjoyed that aspect. I mean, I guess one of the things I haven't done is I haven't built a center from the ground up, but I have certainly went into buildings that were not childcare centers and we had to do the build out inside. So yeah, so I just wanted to give you guys a little backstory of, how I opened up my centers, what my experience is. Did I keep all of them? No. So, there's another little aspect too. So I've also sold a couple and then I've closed one. So I feel like I really could speak to any of those aspects, selling, closing, and sometimes, you have to let your ego go. Sometimes you have a center that may not be the best fit for your brand or may not be worth the, maybe it's not big enough to make you the revenue that you need to make it worth your time. Because every center, I don't care big or small, requires quite a bit of detail and attention. And again, remember, as you open up multiple locations, as you quickly find out, as you start to spread yourself thin, the quality changes, the brand changes. There's a lot of things to really consider. That's why, franchises are a great way to keep your brand growing, but without you necessarily being the one doing the work, but having an owner in that space running that franchise to make sure that the brand, stays on task with what they should be doing. So there's a lot of things to consider, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little background about where I came from and my expertise on childcare centers, my experiences there. And I'd love to hear about yours. I'd love to hear about, if you're an owner, how did you open your center? Did you start as an in-home family provider? Because there's a lot of those folks too, which I was going to, honestly. I was going to open up my first childcare when I first had my daughter, and I was going to call it Angel Face Daycare. And I started to do the work on that. I got the approval. And then, I don't know, something just something in my head said, you know what, that's going to be probably not best for me, because I do like when I go home to have that separation from work and home. So I thought that's probably wasn't going to be the best for me. So then I went and applied at other childcare centers and got my job where I was working for many, many years. But, I really love to hear from all of you about how you started. What type of center did you start? Maybe you have multiple locations. So I'd love to talk about it. So if you could connect with me on Facebook. Let's continue the conversation there. Or Instagram is fine too. Drop me a message or give me your feedback in the fan mail that you'll see in the show notes below. I hope that you're loving tuning in every day as much as I'm loving creating these podcasts. And honestly, whether it's one listener or 1,000 or 1 million, they're all equally important. So every download that you give me just gives me a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. And I love, just pouring into others. So thank you for blessing me with that gift. Thank you for spending the time with me that you do. If you haven't told a friend about our podcast, please do. Please let your friends know, your colleagues know. I really appreciate all of you. And I want you to remember, again, it is those little details that make a big difference in the impact of your childcare business. So that's it for today. And again, thank you for tuning in. I hope that this little look behind the scenes was interesting to you. And if you want me to do more, I'd be happy to do that too. So let me know. Again, let's connect. I'm here to really talk with you. So thanks. Have a great day.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Child Care Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Child Care Director's Chair.